Tony, I know you spoke with some Mets players about Stearns. What do they have to say?
Yeah, the Mets actually have 4 guys on their roster right now who did play under Stearns, or on rosters that Stearns constructed in Milwaukee. So I spoke to a couple of them this week in Washington, and they were very complimentary of David Stearns. I think that goes without saying of a guy who has that kind of success. And people did talk about his track record, his education, all that stuff. But I would say, Sal, what struck me is that the criticism you hear of David Stearns maybe is that he can be a little robotic. You get that sometimes with some of these Ivy League educated guys, et cetera. He seems like the opposite from what these players are saying. He seems like a very personable guy. Daniel Vogelback described the guy who's out around the cage at BP every day, which you certainly don't see from a lot of GMs around the league, interacting with his players, in the clubhouse sometimes, things like that. So that's the type of thing that I think can play well in New York and can certainly play well when you're coming to a new team in a new organization looking to shake things up. So yeah, that's my takeaway, and it's I think, a good one for the Mets if they do wind up getting this guy.
Listen, David Stearns looks the part, right? He's a New York kid. He has the pedigree in Milwaukee where he's built winning teams, not championship teams, but winning teams, and would come in as an accomplished director of baseball operations. So it's a tough move to kill down the road if the Mets go in that direction, because to me, fellas, it's the obvious move. It's the no-brainer move. He wants the job. It sure seems like the Mets clearly want him. Now, if there's a knock on David Stearns, he did a fabulous job developing a pitching staff with the Milwaukee Brewers. He did not do the same thing when it comes to developing a lineup with the Milwaukee Brewers, where it's been a team that has struggled to score runs on a consistent basis. But if we're sitting here a month from now and David Stearns is the new director of baseball operations with the New York Mets, who in their right mind could kill that move? I mean, honestly, who can?
No, I think it's probably the best hire. I mean, look, I know people bring up Theo Epstein, but that's
he doesn't want the job.
Exactly right. Stearns is from here. You pair that with Steve Cohen, who loves the team. Stearns reportedly grew up a Met fan. Billy Epler had experience in New York. Yeah, you can't knock that trio, assuming that it does get done eventually. Let's make the call to the bullpen and welcome in Jim Duquette. Jim, what makes Stearns so appealing to the Mets?
Well, listen, I think there's a lot of reasons. Like some that already were mentioned by these guys, but I think he's been trained really well. First off, he started out as a Met intern right under Omar Minaya, and then he went over to the commissioner's office, and he's got that pedigree coming from MLB. He went over to Cleveland. Cleveland's had a high success rate. He learned under that group there, and he went down to Houston, learned under Jeff Luhnow, who had a tremendous success down there in the Astros organization before going to Milwaukee. And then when you look at what he's done in Milwaukee, he's won 5 of the last 6 years. If you count this year, they're going to win the division. That'll be, I think, 3 division titles over that stretch. He's built a team on a very small market budget, very similar to what Tampa has done, and even Cleveland. He's probably done it as well or better in some cases. So he has all of the elements. I'm really curious when and if he comes over, how he would do with a much bigger payroll. I think even last year, talk about the relatability there that Vogelbach is talking about. He acknowledged when he made the trading Josh Hader last year that it didn't resonate in the clubhouse there, and realized his ways, and maybe that was not the right move because they didn't get to the postseason after that. So there's a lot of things that I think, he's learned on the job there. He's maybe made a couple of mistakes that he won't make when he comes to New York. So I think it's a really good fit if they can come to terms.